quickly that how easy it is easy to set up a lab. So this way, if you have your own machines, you can build a lab also, and then you can, start working on it. Also, we will be providing the labs as well. So you can also configure the labs over there. So that should be pretty okay as well. So let's just wait for a few more minutes. Folks are joining in. So let them all join and then we will begin. In the meantime, if anyone has any questions, any doubts, any concerns that they have, feel free to unmute and ask.
How are you, bro?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thank you.
So today the lab will be how to create the lab or today class.
So lab is very important. While we are
Okay,
going through the lab, once it
okay,
finishes off quickly, then we will begin with the next topic.
okay. It's like creating the bare metal VXXi and installing the VM.
Correct. Installing
Okay,
ESXi, completing the vCenter installation. There are a few more
okay,
components of vCenter that we need to talk about, so that we will be discussing as well.
okay, bro.
So when you're installing vCenter, the error that you're talking about, Matthias, it can be due to multiple of reasons. So you can install the vCenter directly on the ESXi. So the virtual ESXi that you are creating, you can simply point the vCenter over there and you can do the deployment. Folks are joining in. Just, I think, 1 or 2 more minutes and that should be it. Right, Peter, you will definitely see my screen. Let me share. And I'm just waiting for folks to join in and then I'll share and I'll show it to you. So Matthias, if you're still running into an error, I will basically tell you a couple of things that you need to keep in mind while you're installing the vCenter. And I'm hopeful that you should not run into an error. There is no need to create any other user account on ESXi. The root should be more than enough. Hey Senthil, thank you for joining.
Sir, I'm not able to see the screen.
I'm not sharing it, that's the reason.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I'll share it and then you will see it. I am sharing my screen now. I hope you will be able to see it. Okay. So now I first need to tell you basically how are we going to build a lab over here. Okay. So let me make that point a little clear and then, we'll go about doing that. Okay. Okay. That's fine. I'm in RDP. Okay. No problem. So to build the lab, what we need to do is basically what I've done over here is I have a Windows 10 machine. Okay. So if I take you to my C drive and I show you over here, this is a Windows 10 machine that I have. And over here, if you look at it, you would see that, I have close to about 80 GB of RAM. Okay. This is a 64-bit operating system that we have installed. Okay. And if I show you the hard drive, I've got a 500 GB hard drive over here. And if I show you CPUs, then I've got a few CPUs as well over here, close to about 16. Okay. Now, when you are basically deploying a virtual machine, like this Windows 10 is basically a virtual machine for me. Okay. Now, when you are deploying a virtual machine, it is important that you give, good amount of resources that, you do not run into an issue. Okay. Now, okay. The next thing that we need to do is we need to install VMware Workstation. So that is something I've already installed it. Okay. The machines that you will get, there it will also be installed. Okay, so that will already be done. So we spoke about VMware Workstation as a type 2 hypervisor. Okay. So for lab individual purposes, this is good enough. Now, what we're going to do is we need to create a virtual machine in the VMware Workstation. Okay. And before I do that, I just need to stop the share for a minute. I just need to make one quick change on my machine, and then I'll share it again. Just give me one more minute, and that should be it. Now, whenever you are installing the lab, my suggestion would be that, try to have an SSD. I mean, you can install it on a native spinning hard drive. That should also work fine. But a spinning hard drive will take a lot of time. That's the only drawback that you will have over there. If you will basically do it, let's say on an SSD, then the installations will go basically faster for you. That is what is going to happen. Okay. Also, what we are going to do is that we need to create basically 5 machines over here, all in all. Okay. So it will be 1 domain controller, 3 ESXi's, and basically 1 storage. So we need a storage machine because ESXi's, they need a traditional storage that you can present to them. Now we are doing all this configuration on a virtual environment. So we also need to have a virtual storage. So that is something which will be given to us by OpenFiler. So we have a tool called OpenFiler, which will basically give me that functionality. Okay. So these are things, that I'm going to do in my lab. And now let me share my screen again. Yeah, someone had any question? Okay, fine.
Sir, for practical, any lab is there for us?
Yes, you will be getting lab. So what
No,
I'm
now at present. No.
Sorry, I did not get your point.
At present, it's not there, no? Not allotted, right?
So basically, when we have to allocate you the lab, it has to be basically in a, I should say, in a synchronized manner. So like, there are too many of you. So, we need to synchronize that, at what time you get your lab, at what time the other person gets the lab. So we have to synchronize. So that's the reason it is not available now. Once we synchronize with you offline, then of course the labs are there for you only.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so here I've got a Windows 10 machine. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. You're able to see it. Now what I need to do is I basically need to create my VMs in VMware Workstation. Why? Because this is a lab, this is a testing environment. So VMware Workstation is good enough. The machines that you will get will already have VMware Workstation. So no problem for that. Now, what we need to do is before you start configuring the machines, it is important. Let me remind you again that what we are going to do is that we are going to create basically 5 virtual machines in total. So this will be my storage. These 3 will be my ESXi host, and this will be my domain controller. Okay. Now it is important that all these machines should basically talk to one another. So when they have to talk to one another, what we are going to do is we are going to put them on the same network. Okay. So we will put them on the same network and we will give them a same IP. So let's say I'll give them an IP of 10.250 10 n.x/24. You can choose any range that you feel like. I'll choose this range. and I'll basically do the deployment. This is what we are going to do. Okay. Now to create a virtual machine, you first need to configure a network. So in VMware Workstation, for my virtual machines that I'm about to create, they will be able to talk to each other. For that, what I need to do is I need to basically click on edit. I need to click on virtual network editor. Here, I need to change the settings so that I can have the admin access. Okay. And once this quickly comes up, okay. Now here I'm going to add a network. Now there are a lot of inbuilt networks given by VMware Workstation. I can choose any one. Let's say I add VMnet 19 over here. Okay. Now what would happen is the VMnet 19 has to be a host only network. Okay. And just uncheck these two options over here. Okay. I'm not going to use a DHCP that is given by VMware Workstation. This is not needed. I will just take that off, take it out. As cannot subnet mask cannot be 0. Okay, let me try this again. So change settings, say yes. Come over here, add network, VM19, hit OK. And simply uncheck these two options. Hit the apply button. Do not remove that IP. It needs that IP over there. And then you hit the OK button. That is all that you need to do. Okay. Now, once you have done this, now what you need to do is you need to click on the file button, click on new virtual machine. Now, keep in mind, we are not here to learn VMware Workstation. We are only using VMware Workstation because we can build a lab. I am using VMware Workstation as a tool where I can build my lab. That's the only intention of using a VMware Workstation. Okay. Again, we are not here to learn how VMware Workstation works. Okay. So you need to choose custom over here. Choose, Workstation 17. And here you basically need to map an ISO, or you can even do that later. It's not a hard and fast rule that you have to do it right now. Now it is basically asking you which operating system would you be installing. I'll say I'll install Windows 2019 for my domain controller. Now it says that, end of the day, virtual machine is a group of files. Where are you going to save those files? So I will basically give a location over here. I'll go to C drive. I'll create a folder over here, lab. And in lab, I'll create another folder over here and I'll call it as DC01. Okay. So this virtual machine that I'm about to create, all the files related to the virtual machine should go to this location. This is what I'm saying. I'll keep the defaults over here. Nothing fancy I'm going to give. Okay. I'll give like 8 GB of RAM. That should be more than enough. I'll say no, thank you for this. I'll keep everything as default. I'm going to create a new disk. I know 30 GB is more than enough to build a domain controller, and I would hit finish. Okay. This is, I created my virtual machine. Now I need to change my network. You remember our intention was that all the VMs should talk to one another, and we chose VM19 over there. So I'll choose VM19 over here, hit the OK button so that all my machines basically come to VM19 network. And now I will hit the power on machine. Okay, it will say that, there is no floppy drive. Do you want to see this message again? I would say that's okay. The virtual machine is configured to run with only 2 CPUs, and it has only, the virtual machine cannot be powered on. Okay, let me see what the concern is over here. I'll change it to 1 and I'll change it to 4. This is because all is configured will fail because it is configured to use more virtual processor than the host supports. Why would it say that? How many cores I have over here? Let me double check again. It basically says 2. Wow, that's the reason. Why does it say 2? What setting did I change? Cores per socket. Sorry?
You give the hands-on lab. This is the hands-on lab.
Yeah, so this is the way you will get your lab.
Okay. I can
Okay.
build in this lab also my laptop also, no?
How much RAM you have?
16 GB.
No, you will not be able to build it, buddy, because it requires a lot of RAM. That's the reason.
Okay.
That is why we are giving you RAM wherein you have a good amount of RAM and you are able to build it. And my concern is that why is it showing me only 2 virtual processors over here? This is something I do not understand because over there it shows me. Okay, let me power down again one more time.
Sir, mention it too.
No, that's not the intention. No, the intention is that I've given a lot of RAM, and why am I not seeing it? So let me show you what I've done over here. Okay, so let me share my entire screen now, screen 3. Okay, so if you see this machine over here, and if I hit the edit button, you see I've given 16 CPUs over here. And basically it should say 1 socket and 16 cores. So I've basically given 16 over here. Hit the save button. It basically says 16 CPUs over here. I'll power on this machine. Now let me quickly go in and see that, what are the number of CPUs that I see over here. The hardware option is enabled. So if you see over here, when I go to edit settings of this virtual machine, when I expand CPU, you see exports the hardware assisted option. This is basically over here. Now let me log in to this machine. Let me put in the password. Okay. Let me edit the processor again. Okay, I'll say 1 and I'll say 4 and I'll say okay and I'll say power on, and now it works. So typical Windows, sometimes you need to power off and power on things to get it going. Okay. So let me quickly expand this over here. Okay, or let me take an RDP for this machine. Okay. So I've given an IP over here. So if you see an IP, it should show you an IP over here of 19. Let me quickly connect to my machine of 19 IP. Okay. Now what do I need to do is I need to get an ISO. Now from where would I be getting an ISO? So to get an ISO, there are a couple of options. The best is you mount the ISO on your local desktop, and then you basically map it over here. So what you're going to do is basically you would come to your machine that you have over here. You will basically come down and just navigate your 2019 ISO wherever it is. Hit the select button. Hit save. Now when you would go in, it would basically show you the 2019 ISO. Here you need to say send control alt delete. And now you basically boot from the CD drive. And basically now it should be installing 2019, hopefully. So let's wait for a minute and verify that 2019 is indeed getting installed over here. So this is the way I can use VMware Workstation and I can quickly build my lab. Very fruitful way and very easy, when it comes to setting up a lab. Let me quickly begin the installation for DC01, and then in the meantime, I'll create the other ESXi machines, and I would also create the machine for the open filer, and then we will do the installation over there as well. Okay, this is a 2019. The default options, nothing fancy, nothing major you need to change over here. Again, always remember the installation that you do on a virtual platform or the installation do on a physical platform does not basically change the operating system. It is the same ISO that you have. Okay, so I would be choosing a Windows 2019 data center evaluation version. I will get a trial for close to about 90 days. That's more than enough for me. And I'll just keep the default options and then basically begin with the installation. Okay. Now, while this installation is going on, I do not have to watch this installation till the end. I'll quickly create one more virtual machine over here. And this is going to be my ESXi. So here I get an option. I can choose ESXi. I would be installing ESXi 8, but I can choose ESXi 7 over there because that's the only option. Again, I am creating a virtual machine where it needs to be placed. I'll create a folder over here for ESXi01. I'll name the machine as ESXi01. It says that how many processors you need to have, how many cores it should have, how much RAM you want to give. I'll say 22 GB RAM. That should be more than enough. I'll keep the defaults. How big you want the hard drive to be. 10 GB should be more than enough. And I'll basically keep the defaults. Okay, this is what I will do. Now, this ESXi is a machine where I would be running virtual machines as well. So make sure that this option gets enabled. This will be enabled by default. However, just make sure that this option is enabled for you. Okay. Now, the Windows installation is going on. What I can do is basically I can quickly download my ESXi ISO also, so that I can quickly map my ISO and I can begin that way also. Okay. So what I would do is I will quickly log into my base ESXi, and from there I can download the ESXi ISO, and then I can map it and I can do simultaneously 2 installations. This is what I can do also. So I will basically go to my storage, go to my SATA hard drive, do a browse, go to ISO, choose vSphere 8, choose GA, ESXi 8. I will choose my ESXi 8 ISO and I would say download. So there's no point in waiting for that installation to complete and then going to mount it. You simply download the ISO, map it, and you are good to begin with the installation. So just to save some time, we can quickly do this. Okay. This is basically downloaded. Now what you do is you basically power on the ESXi. Again, I need to change the network over here. If you see the network is not changed, I would go over here to NAT. I would change it to VM19. I would go to CD drive, and then I will say use an ISO image so that I basically mount an image. I will go to downloads. I see my ESXi image. I'll say open. I'll hit OK. I'll hit Control Alt Delete. It should pick up my ESXi ISO, and there you go. And it starts booting from it. Okay, so I've got a domain controller installation going on, and I've got an ESXi installation going on. Now, when you are doing this on a Windows 10 machine, you need to be very careful with the utilization which is going on. The best way to look at the utilization is simply open the task manager of your Windows 10 machine, go to the performance, and you see your CPU utilization hovering at 16-20%. You see your memory, it is about 13 GB in use. You see your hard drive. See, if the hard drive goes to 100%, everything will freeze. Okay, so it's not always CPU and memory. Okay, always keep in mind that storage has to be also very great, very good. If you only put a lot of money in CPU and memory and you do not pay attention to storage, your machine will perform very slow. Okay, so keep in mind that your storage should also be good. So this is the way you can keep a track that how the utilization is of your Windows 10 machine going on, how actively it is getting utilized. Can you spin up one more machine or you cannot? You can basically, do everything over here. Okay. While this is going on, I also need to create a machine for the open filer. So for that, again, I'll choose the default options, and here I will choose Linux Ubuntu. This should be more than enough. Again, I'll specify that go to the C drive, go to the lab folder, and here I would make SAN01. Okay, I'll specify SAN01, hit the next button, give the amount of CPUs that I want, give the amount of RAM that I want. Okay, just choose the default options. This can be installed on a 20 GB hard drive. My open filer as an installation. I'll basically do that and I'll power on the machine. Again, I need to make sure that I change my network over here. Okay, it is going to NAT. I need to make sure that they are in the same network so that the communication can happen. Okay. Now my domain controller installation is kind of going on. My ESXi is kind of booting up. Okay, but here it is basically installing Windows again. This is something I do not want. So what I will do is I will go to my ISOs and I will download OpenFiler. To download OpenFiler, you basically just need to go to OpenFiler. Just do this a quick search. Again, you will find OpenFiler. Just go to downloads and download this ISO. Okay. I have already downloaded an ISO. So all that I need to do is basically need to download this. Okay, I will go to SAN01. I will go over here. I will quickly map my ISO. Nope, not the sound card, sorry. I will quickly map my ISO. I will choose over here Open Filer, hit the OK button, go for a quick reset of the virtual machine. So that it basically now picks up the Open Filer ISO. It is booting from the Windows ISO. That is something I do not want. So there you see, this is the Open Filer installation. Basically hit the enter key. Very simple to do this, nothing fancy, and let it boot up. Okay, let's see where we are with the other installations. This is kind of going on. So this is the way you can monitor your lab.
Hello, sir.
Go for it.
Yeah, this is Suresh, sir. Sir, in this open file, we have download any ISO file images.
Yeah, so I told you, you can basically go to Open Filer and you can
Yeah.
download the ISO from here.
Yeah. Okay. Any Red Hat Linux and Linux
No,
Windows
no.
server. Oh,
This is a dedicated Open Filer ISO that you need to download. Okay.
okay.
So there are many options available. You see this? You just need to download this. And that's what I have booted my machine from. Okay,
Okay.
the version 2.99. This is
Okay.
basically an ISO which can simulate the storage for you. There are a lot of options like FreeNAS, OpenFiler, and a lot of you would find third-party tools which can do that. I am comfortable with OpenFiler. That's the reason I chose it. You can choose anyone that you feel like.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Just go ahead with the default installations over here. Nothing fancy. It says basically it's going to wipe off everything in the 20 GB hard drive. I am okay with that. It says it will pick up an IP from DHCP. Again, this is backed by Linux
So,
kernel. So, Mhm.
Sachin here. So OpenFile based on the NFS or fiber channel or iCASI?
iSCSI.
iCASI only. Okay,
Yes.
fine.
So just go ahead, put in a password. This is backed by Linux. So here you just need to give it a password for a root, like I mentioned over there, and just keep hitting next, next, next. It is going to format the 20 GB hard drive and install its operating system. Okay. Now here for the Windows machine, it has basically gone ahead, installed the operating system, and now it is asking me to put in a password. I will do that, hit finish. And then here I need to log in. Okay. So depending on the resources that you have on your desktop machine, you can do parallel installation. You can do Windows, ESXi, OpenFiler, all you can initiate at once. Everything can be done at once. So, but you need to keep in mind, you have sufficient resources, and this is the way you can keep a track of it. You see sudden spike in my CPU, it goes till 42, 47%. So just keep a track of it, and then you should be good. Now, whenever you create a virtual machine, if you create it in VMware Workstation, or if you create it on an ESXi that I will show you later, you need to install VMware tools. Okay. What is VMware tools? Very important. Let me basically talk about it. Okay. So what would basically happen is, let's say that you have a physical machine. Let's say this is your physical machine that you have. Now on this physical machine, what you will do, you will install Windows 10, for example. Okay. Now you basically, went to Amazon, and from Amazon you bought a network card. Let's say you bought a Real Tech or any other company's, network card that you bought. Now Windows 10 is an intelligent operating system, and generally it will be able to pick up the drivers on its own. However, if Windows 10 is not able to pick up the drivers of the hardware that you have installed, then you basically need to install the drivers, over here, which are compatible to Windows 10. Once you install the drivers, then basically you will be able to use this network card on your Windows 10 machine. Okay. Similarly, when you create a virtual machine and when you install Windows 10 over here, how would Windows know that, is it running on physical machine? Is it running on virtual machine? It does not know about it, right? Windows 10 has no capability to figure out that am I running on a physical machine or am I running on a virtual machine. Same is applicable for Linux as well. Okay. So again, Windows will basically look for network card drivers, will look for video drivers, will look for audio drivers, will look for USB drivers, will look for motherboard drivers, will look for the controller drivers, will look for the display drivers, will look for blah 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 blah, few more things it will look at. Now you are on a virtual machine. From where are you going to get the network drivers? From where are you going to get the video drivers? So who is going to take care of it? In comes VMware tools. So when you install VMware tools, it has basically all the drivers which are required by the operating system on a virtual machine. This is what VMware tools can basically do for you. Okay. So always keep in mind, whenever you are creating a new virtual machine, be it on VMware Workstation, be it on ESXi, after creating the VM and installing the operating system, the very first thing you should do is install VMware tools. Create the virtual machine, install the operating system. The third thing that you need to do is install the VMware tools. There is no if and but over here that should I install VMware tools? Will it have an impact? Should I do it on my production machine? Should I not do it on my production machine? All these questions should not pop up. Okay. The only thing, like, we get up in the morning and we brush our teeth. Okay. It's an unsaid thing that, when you will get up in the morning, you have to brush your teeth. I mean, similarly is the case with VMware. When you deploy, when you create a virtual machine, when you install the operating system, right after the installation of the operating system, you need to install VMware tools. Be it a Linux machine that you have, or be it a Windows machine that you have, VMware tools you have to deploy. There is no ifs and buts over there. Okay. So this is what basically VMware tools will provide you on a virtual machine. Doubts, confusion, question? Okay. So to install VMware tools, like what I've done over here is I've just created a Windows machine. I've deployed the operating system. Now I need to deploy my VMware tools. How would I do that? Simple, just make a right click on your virtual machine, DC01, and then you would see over here, install VMware tools. simply click on it. Okay. When you will click on it, when you will go to the operating system, you would see over here an ISO, a VMware Tools ISO. All that you have to do is basically just double click on it and just proceed with the installation. Whatever the default options that you see, just proceed with it. You do not have to make any changes over here. While this is coming up, let me see where my ESXi installation is. Last time we did go through all these options over here, so I'm not going to repeat. Let me quickly rush through all these options and begin the installation for the ESXi. Now over here, the installation for the open filer is complete. I'll basically hit reboot and I will let the machine reboot. And here I see the prompt for the VMware tools. So like I mentioned, don't make any changes, keep everything as default, next install, and that's about it. And if you see very carefully over here, you would see a lot of drivers coming up. So right now you see installing VMCI driver, starting the services, installing VMX Net3 driver, installing PSV USB driver, PS2 driver, memory control driver, video driver, audio driver, blah, blah, blah driver, everything, whatever the operating system needs, this will basically do it by default. Okay, you do not have to worry about it. Whichever the machine is, you see the resolution is now big because I've got a video driver over here. Whenever you will do the installation for the first time, it will always prompt you to reboot the machine. Please go ahead and do that. Okay. This is not a machine which has gone into production. This is still a new machine that you have just deployed the operating system. There is no application, nothing running on it as production, because of which you will require or you will have to seek the permission to reboot the machine. This is a brand new VM. Just go for it, and just reboot it. So my ESXi installation is going on. My open filer has also in the reboot process. Let's wait for them to come up.
Sir, last time you were saying now it's 8.0, you check the compatibility of the hardware.
Mm-hmm.
There how to install, sir? We have installed the VMware Workstation now.
Again, keep in mind, what is VMware Workstation? VMware
It's a
Workstation, it's only a type 2 hypervisor giving you an option to play, learn, and test. The compatibility that I talked about was for the production. When you have a physical actual server on which you are about to install ESXi and you will be running production virtual machines, there you need to be absolutely sure that your hardware is compatible. This is a lab. So Kumar, don't worry about it. This is only a lab. Okay, we are not bothered that whether our compatibility is there or not. Okay, you get the point.
sir. Yeah, I got it.
Now here I've installed my operating system, I've installed my VMware tools, and the machine rebooted and I need to log in again. So basically I'll put the password again. Okay, so my operating system boots up. Let it be. Okay, so now once you have installed your operating system, let me quickly show you something. So when you will go over here on the command prompt, and when you would go to appwiz.cpl, here you would see VMware tools. So after installing VMware tools, you would basically see it in your add and remove programs. Okay, so always keep it by default. Whenever VMware tools get installed, by default, these libraries will get installed. So let them be as it is. Okay. Now I need to promote this machine as a domain controller. Okay. So whenever I have to promote a machine to a domain controller, there are a couple of basic things that you need to do. First, let me quickly, this is a lab, so I will disable my firewall. I don't want, the IP address to be causing some issues over here. So I'll quickly disable the operating system firewall because this is a lab and I want things to work okay. Okay. The next thing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to disable my power settings. Okay. I don't want this machine to be sleeping on me and the screen, dozing off. So what I will do is I will go to the power options over here and I will go when to turn off the display. I say never. Okay, so my display never goes off. Now this is a domain controller. This will be a domain controller, so I need to give a static IP. I don't need IPv6. I will remove IPv6. I will go to IPv4 and I can basically give an IP address over here. Any range that you feel like, you can give that. No concerns. So this will be my IP. I can choose whichever CIDR block I am okay with. So I will choose a /24. Again, I'll make this machine, I'll give a fake default controller because a domain default gateway because it doesn't need it. I mean, there's nothing that I'm going to do with the default gateway. I'm not doing any routing over here, but I'll just specify. Okay. And this machine will also be my DNS. Okay. So I specified the IP. Now I need to change the name of my machine because right now, if you see, the Windows has given itself a very fancy name. Okay, I don't want to have this fancy name. So what I would do is I would basically come over here and give it CDP DC01 or any name that you feel like. Okay, you can give that name over here. And Windows will say, of course, you need to reboot it because you have renamed the machine. I would say, fine, go ahead and reboot it. And here my ESXi installation is complete. And I would let my ESXi boot up. Okay. And I see my open filer has already booted up. However, there is no IP. So you see this message over here. You do not appear to have any networking because this is trying to look for an IP on DHCP, and I've not configured DHCP. So once I quickly configure DHCP, then this should pick up an IP. Similarly would happen for the ESXi. ESXi will try to pick up an IP from DHCP. It will not be able to find it. Okay, so let me work on my domain controller and then set up a DHCP so that those machines get an IP. Okay, so I've done the basics for my domain controller promotion to happen. So here I'll quickly log in again. I've changed the name, I've given it a static IP, I've turned off the firewall, and I've told machine not to, sleep on me. Okay, all those configurations are done. Now I need to basically install the role for the domain controller. Okay, why am I installing a domain controller? The reason is very simple because I'll install DNS DHCP over here. I'll create the records, which are basically required. So there are a few more things, that AD can help you with your vCenter. And basically you have AD always, in an environment. So that's the reason I'm doing this. And here I would basically install my domain services, Active Directory domain services. I'll hit next, next, next. Just go ahead with the installation of the role. Once the role is installed, then I will basically promote it quickly. Okay, so you see ESXi booting up. So let this boot up.
Sir,
Go for it.
hello. Yeah, sorry, sir. Sir, is it better to install as a physical machine or VMware?
I mean, in production, Suresh, you would always do it on a physical machine.
Okay,
However, this is a lab. We are
okay,
testing, we are learning. So that
okay,
is why we are doing it on a VMware workstation.
okay.
So VMware workstation, you will always do it on a
Yeah,
testing purposes. But
okay.
whenever you are doing things in production, of course, it has to be on a physical lab.
Sir, when you have going to install the production, I have take the more much of the servers. Means the blade servers. I have taken the blade servers
Hmm.
and high RAM power and high storage, and I will take SSD hardware. On that time, I have take this one. I mean,
Correct. So
in VMware.
So when you're installing on a Blade server in ESXi, you need to make sure that your Blade server is compatible. Like I told you in my previous classes on how to verify the compatibility. So make sure that your hardware is compatible, and then depending on your organization's need, you will basically have the amount of RAM, the CPU, whatever ones are compatible. So this will basically be the decision of the architect. So you would be a system administrator. However, the person who has designed it, who has a lot of experience, um, it is their responsibility to make sure that they set up everything okay. Now here my installation has complete for the role. I would hit close over here, and now I need to promote the server to the domain controller. I will trigger this option over here. I do not have any domain as of now, so I'll quickly create one. I'll just call it lab.local. Hit next. Now these are standard Microsoft stuff. Nothing fancy over here. I'll just keep the defaults. I don't want to make any changes over here. I am happy with all the default options that Microsoft is throwing at me. I'll hit next again. Keep the default options, hit next, next. And then proceed with the installation. Now, once my domain controller is installed, it will basically take some time and then it will come up. In the meantime, let's do something else. Let me show you something else. So I told you that when you install ESXi, you need to give it a static IP. Now, how do you give the static IP? So you basically need to open the console of your server. So for example, if you have an HP server, you will basically take an ILO, and from the ILO, you will see basically this screen. This screen, like I mentioned last time, is basically called DCUI. This stands for Direct Console User Interface. Now, you will come to this screen only 2 times mainly, okay? Mainly, you would come to the screen 2 times. Why? The first time is during the installation. When you're installing ESXi, after that, you will basically require this when you're doing the initial configuration. And the second time is when your ESXi is not responding on the network. Okay. When it is not responding on the network, then you will basically come over here and you will start to analyze, troubleshoot, and see that what is wrong with your ESXi. This is what you're going to do. So these are the 2 reasons that why you would come to your DCUI. Apart from this, you would not see any regular scenario wherein you have to log into your DCUI. Okay, nobody logs into this machine because ESXi can be managed via UI. In VMware, everything can be managed from UI. So you don't need any command line. So if you're learning Kubernetes, you will know that anything and everything you have to do in the command line. When it comes to VMware, there is zero command line. There is absolutely nothing command line over there. Everything is basically UI over there. Okay. So now to define a static IP on the ESXi, what you need to do is you see this button over here, F2. You need to click on this button, F2. Okay. So when you will hit F2 over here, it will ask you for the root credentials that you specified during the installation. So specify the credentials over here. Then you need to come down, come to the management network, configure management network, come down, go to IPv6. This is something that I don't need, so I will hit the space bar and choose the option of disable IPv6. I will go to IPv4, and here I would assign a static IP. Okay. I know in my environment, the IP will be 10 to 50, 10 dot, let's say I'll give 11 IP address over here. The default gateway will be 255.255.255.0. My default gateway will be 10.250, 10.1. Okay, what will be my DNS? My DNS IP will be 10.250, 10.10. And then what would be the name of my machine? I can give CDP ESXi-01. Okay, I've specified these details now. I need to go back to my main menu, and then I will hit the escape button. When I will hit the escape button, it would say that you have made changes to your IPv6 configuration. For that, a reboot is required. You want to apply the changes and reboot? I would say yes. Go ahead and reboot the ESXi. So I've given it a static IP. Okay, now let me quickly reboot it to make sure that it retains the IP. Okay, here my domain controller, the installation got finished, and basically it is doing its stuff, and it is rebooting my machine. So let this go on. Always keep an eye on your Windows 10 installation, that on your Windows 10 machine, that earlier you see that my when the installations were going on, my hard drive was kind of very busy. Now my hard drive is not that busy because all the installations have basically stopped. It's only the reboot which are happening, so not a lot of data. My CPU has also died down because no longer we are doing a lot of installations and all that, so nothing is happening over here. Okay, so I'll let my ESXi reboot and come back up and just wait for this machine to get
Sir,
rebooted.
if I say change the EXI as a network IP also, he can also reboot.
No, if you're only changing the network IP, then it will not be required to reboot.
So if we change the host name, that was he can reboot, no?
Then also it is not required. See, all this stuff when it comes to changing the IP or giving it a name, you do all these configurations when you're installing ESXi the very first time. Okay, you would not change the IP of your ESXi when it is running or when it is hosting production virtual machines. You would not change the name of your ESXi when you are running a production virtual machine on it. So all the changes that you have to do, you basically do it during the installation, during the first time when you're setting up your ESXi. At that point of time, you're basically running nothing. No, there is no production machine running on it. So you can go for the reboot. No, there is no problem over there because you're still creating the virtual machine. It has not gone into the production. Once things are in production, then of course, to reboot the machine, you need all the approvals in the world, but not right now. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Go for it.
If the IP, the management IP is given by the network team, and so do we need to configure the VLAN as well for this host?
They will give you the VLAN and you just need to
Yes,
put in the VLAN number on the ESXi.
yes, yes,
That is
yes.
what you will need to do.
Hmm.
That's it.
And one more question, like if the client is already running with the ESXi 7.0.03, let's suppose, so do they need to pay for upgrading it to 8.0? Like I believe
Yes.
so. Okay.
Yes.
So
Whenever
is that
you change the
Mhm,
major version, whenever you're going from 6 to 7, 7 to 8, then there is a change in the license key.
so they need
Whenever
to
you
mhm,
remain in the version, for example, if you're going from 8.0 GA to 8.0 update 1, update 2, update 3, whenever till the time you're in the 8 series,
mhm.
whenever you are in that series number, you do not have to pay for the any version upgrade. However, when you change the major number from 6 to 7, 7 to 8, then you have to buy a new set of licenses.
Okay, so is there any kind of discount for them, or they need to pay the full amount?
This basically depends on your relationship with VMware.
Okay,
This is something which can be answered by your VMware account manager, which has been assigned to you. They would be
mhm,
the right person to answer that question.
okay.
Sir, if EXI it changed the 7.2 version change now 8.0, so that time also you asking the reboot or
Yes, of course. And when you are upgrading your ESXi, this is a zero downtime reboot. It will have no impact on your virtual machines. Your virtual machines will keep working as they are. Okay, so don't worry about your virtual machines. Nothing is going to happen to them. Your production will keep running as it is.
We go to that VMs are going to the another EXI. That's it.
Correct. Correct.
Because are you hearing my voice?
Hey, Senthil, you are low. Can you come to the mic? Can you speak a bit louder? You're a little low. Check your headphone and come close to it.
Yeah. While migrating the version, the VMware 7, EXI 7 to 8, is there, if it is production, so what will the require and the prerequisite we can do?
Not right now. I mean, this is not the right class to talk about it. Basically, you need to look into the hardware, the license, the versions, the ISO image, and so many things. So let's not talk about it right now. Okay, so what I've done is that I've gone ahead and I've installed my AD. So now if you see over here, this machine is part of AD and this is my domain controller. So now what I need to do is basically I need to configure my DNS and my DHCP. Okay, so my DNS already got installed with the AD installation. I don't have to do anything over there. Okay, but for my DHCP, yes, I need to install my DHCP role over here. So while this is coming up, I'll quickly go to over here on Windows administration, and then you see DNS over here. Okay, just open DNS. You would see the forward zone over here, but you will not see a reverse zone. So it is important that when you are setting up your vCenter, make sure that your records are there for the forward and for the reverse records for both of them. Okay, so I'll create my reverse DNS so that I can do a resolution name to IP, IP to name both. And now I will basically install my DHCP role. So I'll hit next, I'll hit next, I'll hit next, I'll choose my DHCP. Again, nothing fancy over here, just choose the role and just go ahead with the installation. And now once this installation is done, I'll quickly configure my DHCP so that my open filer can get an IP. And ESXi, now if you look at it, 10, 10, 250, 10, 11, this should be now pingable from here. Okay, so let me initiate a ping and let me verify that if my ESXi is pingable or not. So if I do 10, 250, 10, 11 -T, and yes, it is pingable. Okay, so I can reach my ESXi from my domain controller. I am able to do that. The reason I was able to do this is because they are on the same network and they have basically the same set of IP. That's the reason I'm able to do this. Okay, now my DHCP role is getting installed. Let this go through, and then I can show you the next part of the lab, which is an important one as well. So the better the lab you have, the more resources you have, the sooner the installation would happen, the more quickly your lab will respond. Now my DHCP role got installed over here, and now I need to configure it. So I'll basically say just complete my DHCP role. Okay. Now I will basically go over here. I would see my DHCP. Okay, I'll configure my DHCP. So for that, I will go to IPv4. I'll create a new scope. I would say I can give any name, and I can say that my IP addresses should basically be leased from 200, for example, and they should end on 220. That should be more than enough for me. I'll choose the subnet mask, no exclusion, the lease, the DHCP options are okay. The default gateway should be this. Okay, I'll hit next, I'll hit next, I'll hit next, I'll hit finish. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to reboot my SAN01 and it should get an IP now. So let me quickly log in over here. And now I will say reboot. And I would let the machine reboot over here. Now my DHCP is configured. Theoretically, this machine, when it now boots up, it should get an IP from DHCP. Prashant, go for it. Hey Prashant, you've raised your hand. You have any questions, then go for it. No problem. I'm lowering your hand in case if you have any questions.
Sir,
Come back
OpenFlow
up.
need a require into the DHP without static IP not using.
Of course you can do it, but this is my lab. I mean, I will change the IP address over here, but uh, you will of course in production be assigning a static IP. This is my lab. I have configured DHCP so that all the client VMs and all that they get an IP easily. But yes, in production it should always be static IP. This is my lab. That is why I'm playing with the DHCP over here.
Some productions are not using DHP now. So small productions that they made using for only static IP only.
That's okay. I mean, DHCP is not a hardcore requirement. I mean, I've given it for my lab, but you don't have to. That's fine. Okay. So now what I've done is that I've configured my domain controller over here. Okay. You see that my domain controller is configured. I've configured my ESXi. It is reachable. Now it's a time to configure my storage. Okay. Now it already has an IP. Now what I need to do is that I need to basically right click on my storage and I need to add an additional hard drive. Okay. Why an additional hard drive? Because that is something that I will be presenting to my ESXi. For now, just look at the configuration that I'm doing. I know that I have not taught you all these things. Don't worry about it. We will be talking about it later. But for now, just look at the configuration and do the same in your lab. Okay. So you basically need to add a new hard drive. Okay. Give 200 GB. This is all not given at full. They are not allocated at once. They will be given as you are using it. And then you hit the finish button. You hit the OK button. So you've added one more hard drive over here. Okay. Now I need to basically go to this URL. You see over here, web administration, it basically says that you need to go to this URL. Okay. So what I would do is that first I need to download a Firefox offline setup because I don't trust Internet Explorer a lot. So I'll quickly download my Firefox offline setup. Download Firefox for Windows 64.
Sir, why are everyone using the Firefox? This is better than experience in the Edge.
Of course, it is much better. I mean, I like it personally. I don't know about others, but yeah, I mean, I like as a Firefox as an
We are
operating.
also using the Firefox. That was a mistake.
Oh, that's fine.
Sometimes we log into the EXI. It's easily better login.
True. Okay, where is the offline setup? Okay, give me a minute. I have a direct link for the offline setup. Okay, here is my link for the offline setup. Yep, it's a Firefox. Download now. Okay. I've downloaded the offline setup. Now I need to copy and paste this setup in my domain controller because my domain controller does not have access to the internet. So what I will basically do is I would go over here and I would do a copy paste. And now I would install my Firefox over here so that, I do not have to, struggle with Internet Explorer because they don't give Edge over here. They give Internet Explorer and yeah, let me have another browser over here. Now to configure my storage, the first thing that I need to do is I need to go to that URL that you see over here. I just need to go to this URL and I need to basically make the changes over there. Okay. Okay, any minute now, Firefox should come up. Okay. Okay. So what do I need to do? I need to go to the URL, https 10.250.10.200:446. Now it says that my connection is not secure. This is a warning that you will get. This warning you get because your TLS is not enabled. Okay. How would you configure the TLS? Simply go to the Firefox and type over here about config, say accept the risk and continue. Now here you need to type version dot max. Okay, you see this option, TLS version max. This setting, change it to 3. Save this configuration, and here you need to type min, and what you see as 3, change it to 1. Save this configuration, go back over here and say try again, and now it would let you go ahead. Okay. So this is a TLS configuration which was not enabled on the Firefox. You need to do that. Now your open filer that you see over here basically has a self-signed certificate, which browser is not sure about it. And you can say basically, yeah, I know about it. This is safe, and continue. You see this icon over here. Okay, and now you are basically logged into OpenFiler. So to log into OpenFiler, the username is OpenFiler, and the default password is password all in small. Okay, nothing in caps. Okay. Now, if I want, I can change my IP over here, but I don't have to. I mean, if I want, I can change my IP. I can keep it a static IP, but I don't have to. Okay. I can change the name over here and I can, change everything, but yeah, I don't have to do that. Now, let me basically show you the standard configuration which is required for the open filer. Okay. This is something that you will have to do in your lab. Here you can give the name as allow. Basically what you're doing is, let me explain you. I am creating the additional disk that I added on the open filer so that, it can get added to the ESXi and I can place my virtual machines. That's the intention. Okay. So the disk should be visible on the entire network. So that is why I am saying that whatever disk that I'm about to create over here should be accessible on 10.250.10.0 network, and the mask and the default, and the subnet mask is 255.255.255. This is where the disk should be accessible. Now I need to format the disk because the disk is basically a raw disk. It will not be able to present to the ESXi. So when you click on volumes, when you go to block volumes over here, this is getting recorded. So just, repeat the steps in your lab and your configuration will come up. Okay, this is absolutely required because we have to create virtual machines on the ESXi. Now you see your 200 GB drive, it basically has 0 partition over here. So you need to click on SDB, which is basically the second hard drive. Click on it, just come down, don't change any starting or the ending cylinder. Simply click on the button create. It will automatically take that entire space of 200 GB or whatever the space that you have given. Wait for this action to complete. Now you basically go to volume groups. Okay, you choose the volume over here that you have just added over there and just give it a name like SAN01. Add it to volume group. Again, wait for this. Now you need to go to add volumes. Come down, choose as block. iSCSI, fiber channel, etc. You need to choose this option. Use the entire space. and give the name as SAN01 again. Click on create. Okay. Now you need to go to services and you need to enable iSCSI target and enable the service again, which is in the stop state. Okay. This is done. Go back to volumes again. Go to iSCSI target. Click only once. Okay. Now you would basically go to network ACL, the same network that you created, and click on allow, click on update, go to LUN mapping, and you would see your 200 GB drive SAN01 that you created. Click on the button map. This is all that you have to do on the open filer. Okay. Now I need to head over to my ESXi. So my ESXi IP is 10.10.10.11. Okay. So I can access it via name if I have the DNS name. If not, I can do it directly via the IP as well. Again, ESXi has a by default self-signed certificate, which browser is not sure about. I say that's fine. I'll log in as root on the ESXi. Now, this option is basically a customer experience improvement program. This basically means that VMware will be collecting some details about your environment. It is not the personal details of your environment like the IP, which firewall are you running, which is your default gateway, not all that. Basically, VMware is trying to capture how its product is performing, how ESXi is performing. What are the errors it is seeing? Is there any bug that ESXi reports? All those product related details VMware is going to capture. If you would like to read more about it, you can basically just go through it. They have their website, wherein they list out all the details, what they are doing, what they're not. If you would like to join the program, you can let this option be checked. If you do not want, VMware to collect all these details from your environment, you can simply uncheck and you can hit the OK button. Okay. Now you see over here, no data store has been configured. You remember last time I was talking about the importance of a data store. So basically, whenever you have to save anything on an ESXi, it has to be on a data store. Now, there are a lot of things we will be talking about in the data store section. But for now, just look at it. What we need to do. So just go to the storage, go to adapters over here. Click on software discovery. I will be talking about what it is, why it is, what are the other options, everything, but not right now. Okay. So here you basically need to come to dynamic targets. Simply add the IP address of your open filer. Okay, keep everything as default. Save configuration, do a refresh.
Sir,
You would see your VMHPA65. Give me a minute. And then when you will go to devices, you will see your open filer
sir, what is
device.
iSCSI, sir? Actually,
It is a protocol for the storage.
oh, I can use this on iSCSI in vSphere.
Sorry.
Why we can use this iSCSI in the vSphere?
When you are talking to your storage, there are
Okay,
basically very limited options available for you.
okay,
You can do it over iSCSI, you can do it over fiber channel, or you can also do it over fiber channel over Ethernet. Okay. So right now, this is the only available option I have in my lab. Okay. If you even take official training from VMware, they will also make you do this. In the official training also, they will not provide you anything else. This is only what they will provide you. Okay.
okay.
So this is why we have to do this. So I will choose this option of new data store, because how will I establish the connectivity from the ESXi to the storage? That's the reason I'm doing this. I will keep the defaults over here. And I would hit finish, hit yes over here. And then you would see that, my data store is created. Okay. And this is how you can create a data store in your lab. Okay. How it is done in production, this is something I'll talk about later, not now. But to configure the storage, this is what you do. Okay. Now on this ESXi, I can create a virtual machine, give it a storage, and I can do all the other configurations. Okay.
So in similar way, we can add the RDMs as well, right?
Not right now, but to answer your question, yes, but that's a different topic altogether. We will not be discussing about it right now, but later. Okay. Now I've configured my storage. Basically, this is the way you configure your lab. So in your lab, you will have your domain controller. You do the configuration. You set up an ESXi. You give it a static IP. You install your open filer. You configure it. You make sure that your machines are pingable, all of them. And then you have to configure storage on your ESXi. This is the way you will do it. And now the next thing that comes that we were talking about last time is the vCenter installation. Okay. So last time I showed you basically on how the stage 1 gets deployed. So I will basically do a stage 1 installation again. And while the stage 1 installation is happening, I will talk about that what happens in the stage 2. Okay. So first, let me quickly go ahead and start the installation for the vCenter. Okay, so I will come over here and I will mount my vCenter to my test machine so that I can begin with the installation. Okay, so I will come over here to my CDP test, hit the edit button, and I would go to my CD drive, click the browse button, go to ISO, go to vSphere 8, go to GA, go to VCSA, go to the first option, and hit select and map the ISO. Okay. Now, if I go back here, you should see your vCenter ISO mapped as well. Come on, any minute now. Okay, what do I see over here? Okay, I don't see my vCenter ISO over here. Why don't I see it?
So direct copy to the C drive.
Yeah, of course, I can do that as well. I can map it. I can just download it over there. Both the options are available for me. So basically, I go
So
to my
what is the
machine.
errors?
Those are basically talking about that, you know, their storage is getting full and all those basic details. So right now, let me unmount the ISO completely. And now when I come over here, okay, there is no ISO, fair enough, as expected. Now let me come back, edit, and let me add my vCenter ISO. So I'll come over here, vSphere 8, GA1, VCSA, select, connect, save. Now when I go over here, okay, why is it 4.9? Open. Now why is it still showing the Windows one? Okay, Let me download this. I don't know why this is happening, but let me download this. vSphere 8 VCS there. Download. Okay, it's not letting me download from there. Let me try from here. So I would go over here. Can go over here. Go to vSphere 8. I would say download. What page is it working right now? Okay. It is not letting me download from here. Okay. Let me try something else. This could be a browser thing. Yeah, I have my workaround available. So let me log into another lab of mine. That's okay. Let me see that if I already have downloaded the ISO. No, I don't see it over here. That's fine. I will quickly download it from here. And that could be some browser thing because of which it might not be happening. But yeah, let me try this way now. So I'll go to my storage and I would go over here and go to files, go to ISO, vSphere 8, GA, VCSA. I see this one and I can say download. Come on. Why the downloads are not happening?
Sir, I think new download option,
Sorry?
new link, download the vSphere.
That should come up over here. Okay. Let me try something else. Okay. Let me try this way. Okay. I will basically come over here. Just to ISO. Yes, very. Okay. Now let me see that if it recognizes it. Yeah, now it finally does. Okay, so I see my VCSA over here. I'll basically open it. I'll begin with the installation like I told you about for the stage 1. I'm not going to go through over it again because we have already talked about all these options. If you haven't gone through them, so you can check out the last videos and you will get to know about it. Okay, here I'll begin with the installation of stage 1. So for that, first let me quickly create a record over here. So I'll create a new record over here. I'll give it a name as CDP VC-01, and I can give an IP of 10.250.10.12. Okay, I'll create this record over here. I accept with the license agreement where this should get installed. So this should basically go on 10.250.10.11 ESXi. The username will be root and the password of that ESXi would be welcome at 123, the one that I specified. And come on, okay. It is going to connect to my ESXi. Validating the credentials that I've entered over there. And basically it will reach out to this ESXi. Okay, it basically says what is the name that you would like to give to your vCenter. So this is the name that I would like to have for my vCenter. Okay, what will be the password? Again, specify the password that you would like to have. Okay, again, we spoke about all these options, so I'll keep it as default. I'll choose my data store over here, the default one, and I'll keep the default configurations, and I'll specify my IP, my DNS, all those details I'll specify. So the IP will be 10.250.10.12. Subnet mask is 24. The default gateway is 1. The DNS is 10. Okay, so I'll specify the basic details, hit next, and proceed with the installation. Okay. Now let the stage 1 installation go through, and let me talk about that what would happen in stage 2. Okay. So last time we basically spoke about that, what happens, when you install the vCenter. But let me talk about what happens after it. Okay, after when you have installed stage 1, what will happen after that? Okay. So basically what would happen is when you have installed a vCenter, so what will happen is basically a virtual machine will get created. Okay. On this virtual machine, you will have the operating system as Photon OS. Okay. Then you will have the service of Postgres, the database, and then you will have your vCenter, which will basically get installed over here. Okay. Now this happens in stage 1. In stage 2, there is a component which basically gets added over here, which is called SSO. And there is a component called PSC. You need to understand what these two components are. Okay, now I need to talk about and tell you what SSO is and what PSC is. What are these components? I need to now talk about that. Okay, these components also get installed with the vCenter, though they will not be visible to you, at all the places. But these are, components which do get installed, and you will basically encounter these, when you are doing additional installations or sometime in your system admin life. So it is important that you understand what these terms are and why they are needed. So let's talk about that. So while this installation is going on, let this happen. So when you would come over here, you would see that the virtual machine is already created. Okay. This will automatically get created. This will automatically get powered on. Okay, so we will come back to it. But in the meantime, let's talk about what PSC is. Now, what happened is that when you talk about VMware, when VMware basically started, the journey, they basically had two products. They had the vCenter, which was the important one, and then they had their ESXi. Okay. We all know that ESXi is the hypervisor. It is the place where you basically run your virtual machines. Okay. What is vCenter? vCenter is a management component from where you manage your VMware infrastructure. Now, what has happened is, you know, as time flies, you saw that on the VMware portal there are 179 products. So VMware as a company started off with 2 products, and now they have basically 179 products. And vCenter is basically the center of attraction, which means that from vCenter you can basically manage your entire VMware infrastructure. If they have 179 products, that doesn't mean that you have to basically run around pillar to post and open a different URL and then manage the things over there. You don't have to do that. You basically have one component, vCenter. You basically log into vCenter, and from there, you can basically do the bunch of the work from there. That is what the vCenter is. Now, what would basically happen is when you have so many products of VMware, I'll give you a few examples. Okay. So think about it, your solar system. Okay, if I talk about my solar system, we all have studied in school that sun is the center of attraction, and then you have the planets which are basically revolving around the sun. Okay, so and everyone is basically going in and doing a revolution of sun going around it. Okay, similarly is the case with the VMware as well. So think about it, your sun is the vCenter. Okay, and all the other VMware products are basically the planets, and they have to integrate with sun. Okay, so there are a lot of VMware products. Just to give you an example, I'm writing few over here so that you understand what they are basically. I mean, what are the different products that they have, and blah 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 blah. Basically, what you do is when you install any VMware product, it is important that you register that product with the vCenter. So every product will basically register itself with the vCenter. Why the vCenter? Because all the virtual machines are running on the vCenter. No, if you have thousands and thousands of virtual machines, who is that one component who knows all about it? It's the vCenter. If you have 2000 ESXi's in your environment, if you have 20,000 virtual machines, so many networks, so many data stores in your environment, who is that one component which basically knows anything and everything? It's the vCenter. Okay. So when you install additional VMware products, end of the day, all the products basically target a virtual machine. All the products basically are here to work on your virtual machine, making sure that your environment is smooth. Okay. So when everyone has to target the virtual machines, what is the best way to target the virtual machines? Contact vCenter. When you contact the vCenter, everyone basically can get the list of the entire inventory. That is what can happen. Okay. So what everyone will do, they all will register with vCenter. So they will let vCenter know, like HCX will say, hey vCenter, I'm a product of VMware. My name is HCX. How do you do? And I would like to connect with you. So it will basically establish the communication with vCenter, and VMware and vCenter would say, okay, thank you. Thank you for registering. That's all. Okay. Similarly, every product will do that. Any product, be it VMware or be it third party like Veeam or Commvault, or there's so many products out there. Okay, everyone has to basically reach out to the vCenter because that's the center of the attraction. Now the question is, when you have so many products which are basically trying to integrate with the vCenter, everyone wants the vCenter to integrate with the vCenter. But the question is, who will keep an eye? Who will make sure that all these integrations are happening fine? There is no problems with the integration and everything is going as expected. There are no hiccups. There are no complaints from any of the products. The registration has happened and everything looks smooth. Who is that one component that will make sure that everything is going smooth in terms of the registration of the different products? It is PSC, Platform Services Controller. Okay. So the name of the product is Platform Services Controller. This was introduced for the first time in 5.0 and then it got very relevant in 5.1 environment. So if like I've been working on VMware for ages now. Okay. So this was introduced in 5.0 version and in 5.1, you had to basically study and understand more about it. This is very old, terminology, PSC. But just to let you know, this is what the functionality of PSC is. So to recap, PSC is making sure that all the other products, when they have to register themselves over the vCenter, that registration is going well. There are no challenges with the registration. This is what the job of the PSC as a component is. Doubts, confusion, question?
I think earlier it was a different virtual machine, but now it has been integrated with the vCenter, right?
You are right. Earlier, there were a lot of different, VMware had to do a lot of combinations. But yeah, I'll come to that later. But everything is now built in one machine. Now let me talk about the second product. Okay. So we know what PSC is and why it is needed, and it basically gets installed automatically. You do not have to do anything. I mean, it is just as an understanding, you should know about it because this is very important. Now, what would happen is the registrations went okay. Okay. So whatever registrations you wanted to do, they all went okay. Everything is looking fine. Now, let's say you want to work on the product HCX. Okay. HCX can help you in migrating the virtual machines from one VMware environment to another VMware environment. You want to work on the product vSphere application. It can basically give you the functionality of DR. You can protect your virtual machine. You can replicate it to another site. Then you have SRM, which can do a lot of automation when it comes to DR and blah, 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 all the other products. Now the question is, when you have already integrated with vCenter all these components, do you have to log them or do you have to log on to them independently? Do they have a different UI that you have to log on to and then give the credentials again and then basically work over there? No, you don't have to do that. So what you have to do after registering these components with a vCenter to manage or to work on the product HCX, you do not have to log into HCX directly. You simply log into vCenter, and from vCenter, you can be redirected to HCX without having to give your credentials again. Okay. If you have 10 products of VMware that you have registered with vCenter, and if you need to access one of those products, you should not be putting the credentials again, right? Because you've already registered it with vCenter, you have authenticated to vCenter, and now those credentials, your authenticated credentials of your vCenter will basically pass on to HCX. And without you having to know about it, you will basically get to the dashboard of HCX and you can start working over there. So this functionality is basically called SSO, single sign-on, wherein you have to log in only once and all the related registered products that are there on the vCenter, you can basically manage it without having to enter the credentials again. Now, one last component that you have over here is basically called SSO domain. You know what PSC is. You know what SSO is. Now we need to talk about what SSO domain is. So basically what would happen is, let me see where we are with the installation, 28%. Okay, let this go on. Okay, still running, that's fine. What is the utilization? Okay. Write speed of 5.2 Mbps by 4.3 Mbps, okay. Okay, now I was talking about the last component, which is basically your SSO domain. What it is, why do you need it? Let me talk about that. Think about it. You have Microsoft domain. We just created a Microsoft domain that was lab.local in my lab. Why did I create a domain? Why do you need a Microsoft domain? You need a domain which is basically your logical boundary. Okay, what is a domain? Domain is basically your logical boundary. In that logical boundary, you basically put your machines. This is what you do. So you know which machines are part of your domain, which policy has to get applied over there. Okay, you basically have a control of your boundary. If you do not have a control of your boundary, if you don't know what your boundary is, then anyone can basically connect to your organization's network. Anyone can just come into your office and basically connect to the Wi-Fi, right? Anyone can do that. Anyone can use your company's resources. So it is not basically allowed for anyone. It is only allowed for those machines, for those users who are basically part of the organization, because no one is giving anything for free, right? You basically work for the organization. That is why organization is basically giving you the resources that it has to give to the employees. Just like Microsoft domain, you have a domain, you can specify the credentials, details, you have a control who is logging in, who is logging out. Similarly, you have a VMware domain. Okay. This VMware domain is also called SSO domain. Okay. Like in Microsoft, I gave my domain as lab.local. Okay. In VMware, the SSO domain can be anything. If you want to give lab.local, superman.local, avengers.local, whatever you feel like, you can give that name. Okay. But people generally keep the name as vSphere.local. Earlier, till version 6, you could not change this name. Your SSO domain name on VMware had to be vSphere.local. Okay. But from 7.0, they gave you the flexibility that if you want to name it spiderman.local, feel free. You can keep that domain name, no problems on VMware. Okay. But earlier, this was a restriction. Basically, what is happening is with SSO domain, think about it. The way you have the Microsoft domain, it has its own internal, AD where it has its own usernames and the passwords and the policy. Similarly, you have it over here as well. Okay. So when you have the vCenter as the center of the attraction, and when you have a lot of products which are basically connecting to the vCenter, vCenter has to bring them in its own domain. Okay. You might have one vCenter in your organization. You might have another vCenter. You might have a third vCenter. You might have so many vCenters in your organization. When any product connects to the vCenter, it has to make sure that it comes within its boundary so that it is able to pass on the credentials, it is able to pass on the policy, it is able to give you that flexibility. As a user, you can manage it, and have a good experience. Okay. To bring it in its boundary, there has to be some domain. And what is that domain? It is basically called an SSO domain. Okay, which is basically generally in the environments vSphere.local. That is what the name is given. But if you want, you can change that name as well. Like I mentioned, you can keep superman.local as well. Okay, so SSO domain in a nutshell, to summarize, is important because just like any other domain that you have for different vendors out there, domain gives you the control of who is coming in, what policy, what credentials basically they have. Okay. Similarly, VMware also needs a domain wherein it can control all the products that you are registering with the vCenter, the username, the passwords, the policies, all that can be applied and made sure that, when you give the credentials, they can be passed on to the another product without you having to manually type those credentials again. This is what vSphere.local is as an SSO domain. It's an internal directory service of VMware. Okay, SSO domain. And it is important, it is required because VMware's ecosystem is growing. And to make sure that everyone is getting compliant with that ecosystem, you have to be part of that domain. Doubts, confusion, question? Okay. So now, no, I mean earlier, Peter, to answer your question, these machines, these components, thank you for asking. I was about to pick up this point. So earlier in the previous versions, you had PSC installed on VM1. You had vCenter and single sign-on installed in another VM, and you had the database installed on another VM. This was the earlier architecture. VMware said this is complicated and not very user-friendly. And now what they did was they created a single VM, installed Photon OS, and here they installed Postgres as the database, PSC, single sign-on, and vCenter. So basically one machine now has everything in it. Earlier, it used to be very complicated to manage all these things, making sure that, there is no network loss that happens and, that everything is basically super redundant and too many things that you had to do. But now everything is basically running on one VM. That's about it. One VM, and you have all the components running over here. Okay. Now, do I need to install these components manually? No. What do I need to do? All that you have to do is you just need to import it. This is it. The VM that you're importing over here, this VM which is getting created over here, it has basically everything in it. Earlier, you had to do all these installations manually. Now this is all gone. You just import the VM in your environment and it has everything on it. You do not have to worry about installing a PSC and all that. It's all gone. Okay. In fifth version of, in vSphere 5, you had to install a PSC. You had the option of installing SSO and, same machine, different machine, external, internal, all those crazy things were there. But now it's all gone. One machine, you would not even come to know about it. Everything gets installed by default. Peter, does that answer your question? What is not answered? You can unmute yourself. You can ask. Or if you're comfortable typing, that's up to your wish. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions. So while this installation is kind of going on, okay, so once this finishes, then we will basically talk about the stage 2. Okay. Yes. So Now in version 8, you do not have the option of installing it on different machines. That option is now gone. So to answer your question, Sarvan, everything is basically running on one machine now. There is nothing running on different machine. You do not have the option of installing it on different machine. Go for it, Seven, if you would like to unmute yourself.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, go for it.
Sir, vCenter, how many ESXs manage?
So to answer that question, all that you have to do is go to a website called VMware Maximums. You will see the first link over here, VMware Configuration Maximum Tool. What is the cost of the license? Sorry, I don't know. I mean, the list price is about $5,000, but you can get a discount. What the discount is, I'm not sure about it, but the license can basically differ, the cost. And here you would go to vSphere 8, and here you can see all the limits over here. Okay, so one vCenter, to answer your question, can have 2000 ESXis. Okay, or I think it's 2500 ESXis it can have. Okay, but this is the way you can verify. So you can go to vCenter maximums, you can uncheck virtual machine maximums, you can see view limits over here. And then this can basically tell you that how many ESXis you can have over here. If it shows you, if not, then basically check for vCenter server. And here you see hosts per center, 2500 it can have.
So can you explain the vCenter link mode?
Not right now. It is basically getting two vCenters in the same pane of glass.
Yeah, that I know. Just wanted to understand the technical background of.
The only technical background, what happens is when you have installed the second when you are installing the second vCenter, you basically point it to the first one. So what basically happens is you're not creating another SSO domain. Okay, so when you're installing the vCenter, you have to create an SSO domain. So you've already done that for vCenter 01. So for vCenter 02, all that you're saying is do not create a new one. I already have an existing one, go and add over there. Like in Microsoft AD, when you create a domain, okay, when you create a forest, for example, lab.local, and you create a domain controller. Now, when you have to create a second domain controller, you will just point it to your same forest, lab.local. You will not create a new forest over there. That is what is happening over here as well. In the end, then this is the reason you're able to see both your vCenters on a single pane of glass, and this is called basically enhanced link mode.
It's like a mother and child domains, like.
No, I would not say mother and child. They both are basically at the same level, but you're basically pointing the second one to the first one so that you're not creating a new domain. That's about it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, fine. It's fine. I understood that.
Okay.
From single login, we can access both the vCenter.
Correct. Is license compulsory? I mean, of course, buddy. I mean, without the license, you can only run it for 50, 60 trial days. After that, you have to, when you're using the service, you have to pay for it, right? I mean, you cannot use it for free. When you have more vCenters, and to answer Peter's questions, when you have more vCenters and you will have only one SSO, then how it will be installed and used. So I told you, Peter, right now, no? So what would happen is when you're installing the second vCenter, you're basically pointing it to the first one. So there you are basically getting both of them onto the same SSO domain. This is what you do. So like in the case of a Microsoft directory, what you do. So when you have created a domain controller, DC01, it is part of lab.local. And when you have to create another domain controller, would you create another domain, home.local or, something that office.local? No, you will basically create second domain controller and you will just point it to this domain controller. Similarly is the case over here. Does that answer your question, Peter? Okay, cool. One who's saying that certifications from VMware are costing a lot of money. Do VMware certifications really add a value to the resume and worth our money? Varun, to answer your question, I would say your company will basically fund for your certification. If you do not have the, budget to go in for and pay 70,000 from your own pocket. I'm talking about Indian rupees. I'm not sure, in different parts of the world how much it costs. But in India, if you do not have that kind of a money, or wherever you are, if you don't have that kind of a money to fund yourself a VMware training, that's absolutely fine. Your vendor or your company will basically fund that training for you, so you don't have to worry about it. In case if you have that kind of a money that you can spend on VMware, my suggestion will be buy a hardware. Okay, buy a machine for yourself, do the practicals, and you will learn a lot. Okay, so buy yourself a machine, do the installations, see how things work, play around with the product. It will help you. End of the day, Varun, always keep in mind, if you have a certification or if you don't have a certification, you have to go through the interview process. If you can answer the questions in an interview, then only you get hired. If you cannot answer the questions, buddy, you will not get hired. So end of the day, they are checking for your knowledge. Certification is only, a paper which is basically validating your credentials, that you know about this technology. That is something that you can get anytime. You just need to sit for an online exam. If you know the product, in and out, within 1 hour, you will be certified. That's not a challenge.
So is it mandatory to attend the official training, or like
Yes. For the
the
first time, yes.
the cost is only $250 for the VMware certification, I think.
No, that's for the paper.
Okay, so is it not valid, the paper, if we qualify the exams?
No, it's not a Microsoft thing there wherein you can just go and register for the exam and get certified. In VMware, you have to basically first take the training. When enabling the vCenter link mode, both the vCenters are the same VM? No, these are two different machines, but basically you can manage both the vCenters on a single pane of glass. When I have more vCenters, is it possible to manage it from one? Yes, that's what enhanced link mode is. We will be talking about it later, and that is something you can do that way. Okay. So now the installation is kind of going on, but let me show you that what would happen. So when your installation is done, okay, when your installation is done, then this is the way basically your vCenter will look like. Okay, this is your way basically your vCenter will look like. Okay, and here you will get to see, and from here you can manage your environment. Okay, so when you will go to host and clusters, you will basically, so these are different tabs. Okay, so when you will log into the vCenter, initially you will only see this. You would have nothing, you would have no child object. Okay, and then you have to create your child object. So to create your child object, when you log into the vCenter, you can basically make a right click over here, or you can go to the actions button, and then you can add your data center. What is the data center? Data center is that physical site where your ESXi's are running. Okay. So for example, let's say that you have a site in Singapore, and there you have close to about 50 ESXi's which are running over there in that one site. Okay. In Singapore, you have, for example, 50 ESXi's which are running over there. Now, out of 50, 40 are in production and 10 are, development ESXi's. So what you can do is you can create a data center over here. Okay. And you would basically call it as per your site. Generally it can be any naming convention as per your organization, and then you will call it a Singapore location. Okay. And then what you will do is you need to create a cluster. Cluster is basically grouping of the ESXi boxes. Okay. So you can have, for example, a production cluster. Okay. And then you can hit next and then hit finish. And now in this production cluster, you can add your ESXi. Okay, and all the 50 ESXi's that you have in your environment running as production, you can basically add them over here, and then you will be able to manage your entire 40 ESXi's from one place, that is your vCenter. Similarly, you can create another cluster over here, and that is, you can call it as development cluster. Okay. And here you can now add your ESXi's, which are part of the development. So this is the way you can segregate your environment. Okay. Now, this is one site, which is Singapore. For example, in Malaysia, you have got another site. Okay, there you have another 20 ESXi's. So for example, in Indonesia, you might have another, set of 30, 40 ESXi's. So you can have a lot of sites that, that you can create over here. You can have different clusters, within the sites that you can create. And this is the way you can manage your environment. Very helpful, very easy to manage your environment. Okay. So this is the way we basically go about doing it. Now, while this stage 1 is going on, let me show you basically how stage 2 looks like. Okay, let me show you that so that you have an idea that how stage 2 looks like. So for that, I'll basically come over here. And you remember the last time that, we were installing the vCenter, and I basically gave it a name. So this is my last vCenter that I was installing. Okay, and it has the IP 10.10.10.59. Let me try accessing it. 10.10.10.159. What was it? 159, correct. And you need to add the port number over here, 5480. Now you need to proceed. Here I'll give it my password that I specified during the installation. And when your stage 1 is completed, then you will basically begin with stage 2. For stage 2, you need to hit next. All these details will come up over here. Here, you need to make sure that your time synchronization should be exact. Okay. So for example, if you are synchronizing the time over here with the NTP server, here you can give the SSH, you can enable it. Make sure if this time synchronization, if this time is incorrect over here, then it will fail. So keep this in mind. Hit next. And here it will basically talk to you about your SSO configuration, the next step. Okay. And this is the place you need to keep in mind that you specify your SSO details over here. Okay, which will be your vSphere.local, or you can give any fancy name as you feel like. Okay, what is your SSO domain? Now here you see by default you have vSphere.local. If you want, you can keep that name. If you want to give a different name, this is something that you can do. When you're installing the second vCenter, then you will basically point it to the first one. Because for the second vCenter, you would say that, I already have an SSO domain. Here, I do not have one. So basically, this is why I'm creating a new one. Okay. So here you would say basically vSphere.local, the username will always be administrator, and here you can define your password. You can say my password. Okay, hit next. If you want to join the program, that's fine. Here you get the summary that how the vSphere SSO details are, and now you hit finish, and this now basically triggers the stage 2 installation. This is how the stage 2 installation happens. Okay, and when the stage 2 is complete, you would have your vCenter. You just need to log into your URL, and then you need to log in with administrator at vSphere.local, because when you have installed the vCenter, who would have the access to log in for the first time, or who has the complete admin credentials? Like, if I talk about Microsoft domain, who has the complete permission? It's administrator at your domain name who has the complete permission. Similarly is the case over here. When you install the vCenter, who has the complete permission? It's administrator at your SSO domain who has the complete permission. Okay. So this
Sir.
is what is going to happen. Yeah, go for it.
Sir, he's using root. I mean, administrator. You have
No.
using the vCenter now.
No. But root is only for the name when you are deploying the vCenter. Okay, in stage 1, because it has the Photon OS over there. This is the domain. So for the domain, it is basically administrator as the username. Now, what happens if when I use this SSO domain name in the domain name from AD? I mean, you can do that, Peter. Nobody's stopping you, but generally you would want to keep them different. Okay. Make sure that when you are doing things in production, this is not a lab environment. Okay. In production, when you're doing things, you have to keep in mind that, all the best recommendations that, you have to follow over there. Okay. There was an earlier question that can we upgrade from 7.0 to 8.0? Yes, you can do that. So this is how we create a lab. This is how we install the vCenter. And these are what the 2 stages are. Okay, this is what I wanted to show you today. Tomorrow when we'll meet, we'll talk about how do we create a virtual machine? What are the things that are required to create a virtual machine? How do you install an operating system? And we will talk about all the other options over there. Before we end the call, doubts, confusion, question.
In case of vCenter upgrade from 7.0 to 8.0, I think we need the process will be to take a free IP, and in its stage 2, it transfer the data from the, I think it deploy a temporary virtual machine kind of a thing.
You
And
can,
then,
so there are 2 options. Whenever you are upgrading, either you do an in-place upgrade. When I say the word in-place upgrade, this means the machine that you have wherein you are running 7.0, that same machine you basically upgrade it to 8.0. You keep the same IP, the same configurations and everything that remains the same. When you are going to create a new virtual machine and you want to start things from scratch as a fresh, then of course you would need to have a different IP on the network, and then you can basically do a migration of these services.
No, I'm talking about the in-place upgrade also. I think in that case also we need free IP.
So what used to happen earlier was, you had the vCenter which was backed by Windows platform. Okay, so that is now not supported. However, if you are running a Windows platform vCenter, so you do not have an option, but you have to upgrade it to an appliance. Okay, you cannot maintain a Windows one. So for that, yes, VMware has basically come up with an option wherein they will create a new VM for you, migrate all the data and all that, they can do that. Yeah, so that is an option available. But generally, whatever you have, you basically do an in-place upgrade. You upgrade on that same machine, you upgrade the versions and all that. That is something that you can do. Okay.
Okay, so currently, if we are upgrading from 7.0 to 8.0, we don't need any free IP to perform that in-place upgrade.
No, it's the same IP used. I'll show you in the lab. So that is all what would happen.
Sir, how can we take the backup? There's a next topic. Is the other topic?
No, those will come later. Backup, you can have to basically use a product like Veeam, Commvault, Avamar, vRanger, so many others. So we can
I think for vCenter backup, I think there will be an option from VMware console to take the backup of vCenter.
Yeah, you have the option over there, so you can do that from there.
No, so in physical missions, suddenly the OS will be crashed. How can we take?
Sorry.
The ESXi is when the ESXi is hanging or is a crashes, so OS crashes. Though how can we take the backup?
So see, you take the backup of the things when things are working fine. You don't take a backup of a machine when things are broken. Okay. When things are broken, you basically restore.
Okay.
Right. So this is what you will do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thanks for giving the class.
No problem, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow, and then let's continue tomorrow about the virtual machine thing.
One more last question. Do you provide training on the VxRail as well?
No, I don't.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, then. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So friends, we have some information to share with you. So I'm talking on behalf of CDP Networks. So I would like to thank each participant for actively participating in the session. So you all have been wonderful. So as you know, tomorrow is the last session for this free training classes. So before we move on to the next sessions, I would like to share some information. So your feedback is very important for us to improve our training sessions. So we will be sharing a feedback form in the group. So I request each one of you to fill it and give a genuine feedback. Also, give us review on Google. So we will also share a link for the same. And after our VMware Essential will get over tomorrow, from next weekend, we from 16 December, we will start our paid batch of VMware. So I'll just give you some information on the benefits for those who have already attended the free session. So first of all, you'll get a 50% off on the training session. So right now our training for the paid batch is actually 30,000. So we are offering 50% off for those who have already registered in the free batch. So for you, it will be only 15,000, and also 50% off for other training sessions on vSAN, NSX, Nutanix, and so on. And also we provide help for certification. We also provide help for preparation on interviews. Also we also post jobs in our group. So I request you to join our Telegram group, where we have a lot of discussion on jobs, and also there are some technical discussions which are happening. So a lot of your doubts might be clear there. Also, you'll get access to the CDP community, and where all the experts are there. Again, there you can post your question on specific topics which generally you will not get answer on Google. So we are providing batch on weekend, so you can avail those benefits, because most of you might be working currently. So that is why we have a special batch which is on the weekends, like how we have the current batch right now. We will provide hands-on training, so we'll have labs there. We'll provide 10 rack sessions for 1 year. Okay, so 1 year validity for 10 rack sessions. So those who are not comfortable in English, we also have training in Hindi, so we provide that. And also those who want to avail the combo offer of VMware plus CCNA or VMware plus AWS, we provide a lot of discounts on that. So of course, all this information will be given to you in the WhatsApp group. So stay alert there. But I thought, I'll just give you a heads up here so that you can make up your mind. If you have any queries, if you want, if you come collectively in 4 or 5, we might offer you some more discounts. So any doubt is there, we are available at your service. You can contact us directly. We'll be happy to assist you. Just let us know how things are going on. So thanks for joining. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow. And like my colleague mentioned over here, yeah, I mean, if you enroll for the class, of course, there are so many things to talk about it. And, how to look for the jobs on LinkedIn, what you mentioned on the resume, how to get, specific profiles, jobs, what to answer in questions, how to frame narrative. We can talk about all these things over there as well. All right, everyone. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.